Enough with the celebrity politicians in Washington. Elect McFall for Congress. U.S. House of Representatives. McFall for Congress. People over politics.
Thank you for having us here today. Again, my name is Steve McFall. I'm running for District 3, which is basically everything north of Albuquerque.
Yay!
Most everybody here is from Albuquerque. I want to tell you a story how I got here and why I'm in politics, because nowhere in my life did I ever dream of being a politician or even thinking about politics. I don't have a single friend that ever heard me say a word about being in politics. About 8 years ago, the state of New Mexico picked a fight with me, and I won that fight, but at the end of that fight, I had $3.16 to my name. So I had to start from that point as a single dad, and I'd actually had a weird accident. I tore up my arm. It was strapped to me like this. I couldn't work. I had $3.16 to my name, and I was a single dad. When I got my second bank statement that said I had $3.16, I didn't really get on my knees and pray, but I just like, God, what am I going to do? And this yellow brick road with fluorescent lights lit up in front of me and said, go this way. And what I was doing before that was teaching skiing, fishing, and playing golf for a living. So who in their right mind would want to change that to be a target for Democrats? It wasn't my choice, but that's the way the path led. The fight that I fought was against a government that was overbearing. It was 3 months and 11 days of the worst part of my life. I felt helpless. There was nothing I could do. Every lawyer I talked to said, no, good luck with that. They take off running. Every politician I talked to said, hey, good luck with that. They take off running. I got no help from anybody. What I did is actually learn our law, that was pertaining to me there. I used CYFD. If you guys know who CYFD is, that's who I was fighting against. I actually beat them because I learned their rules and used them against them and beat them. I never had to go before a judge, but they did break me in the process. It scarred both me and my daughter, and at the end of that fight, I knew I had to do whatever I had to do to not let that happen to another family, because it was awful what they did to us. They took my daughter away from me for 3 months and 11 days, and that was all started by an ex. I was the opposite of the air little dirty laundry. I'm the opposite of the rest of the world. I had sole custody of my daughter by 5 different judges, and CYFD still thought they knew better than the 5 judges that had ruled, and better than me. We won that fight because I learned their rules and I got involved in politics. It was awful what they did, and it was just overbearing regulation. And the farther I got along in this, I went back to school, which was one of the steps in the path. Everything I took as a class was specifically for this job. One of the main things I wanted to learn was history, and study history more in depth. I went back to about 1490. We started and came forward and learned about Western civilization and how we developed. Studied economics. Really the best part of my education, I went to UNM in Taos. Every professor I had but 2 were liberal Democrats, so I got a pretty good education arguing with them. When I decided to run for Congress, I had worked for 2 years on a plan to build a fish hatchery, a grocery store, and a greenhouse at our school in Eagle Nest. We have some land up there. We wanted to put that on, which would create jobs for our community. It would be a source of revenue for our school. And then we have all that stuff as practical information to teach our kids. I worked on this plan for 2 years. Went to a town hall meeting and showed it to Ben Ray Lujan, who's my opponent, our incumbent. And he said, man, this is what we're looking for, stuff like this. And he asked if he could have a copy, and I said, yes, sir, that's for you. And then he said someone from his office would be in touch with me very soon. That was 8 years ago. I haven't heard from him yet. We're still working on that project. We do have it going partly, and I've written some other plans for other schools, because in rural areas like where I live, there's a lot of things and jobs that can be created, or careers is a better way to put it, through education. And that program was called Rural Revitalization for Education. I don't know who came up with it, but this plan was dropped in my lap and we developed it. The final thing, we were sitting, my birthday's December 15th. I don't know if it's Bill Wright's Day. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything at the Cosmos, but I'm running for Congress and my birthday's on Bill Wright's Day. I invited all my friends over to my house for a party, but not to party. I told them we were going to talk about running for Congress. While we were sitting there talking about running against Ben Ray Lujan, his campaign called my phone and asked for my support for his campaign. I just put it on speakerphone, put it on the table. There was this long period of silence from everybody. It was probably only 30 seconds or so, but we all decided that was the sign and it was time to go, and here I am. Going through everything that I went through, there was nothing easy about it. I had 3 jobs at one time. I was a single dad and being in politics, and I was a full-time student. So whenever somebody tells me they don't have time, I just pass right by them and go to the next thing, because we all have time. We have 1,440 minutes every day, and we can choose to do what we want to do with them, and we always have time where we can do something else. What I learned in school and through this whole system, especially being at the bottom, and I was on services for a short time. When my arm was tore up, I was actually on food stamps for 3 months. And it's such a vicious circle. What I get tired of hearing is that everybody that's below the poverty level is lazy. And that is true in a lot of cases. There's no study, and I've searched, there's no information to say how many people don't care that they're living off of taxpayers and how many people really want to get out of there. But there was nothing easy about being there. And when my arm was okay and I was back to work, working full time, I called the office and asked them, how do I get rid of this card? Do I need to bring it to you? Do I cut it up? Is there something I got to sign to close this? And the lady asked me if I was working. And I said, yes, I'm working full time, everything's good. She said, well, if you'll bring me a pay stub and prove to us that you're working, we'll increase the value and you can continue receiving benefits. They were going to move me from $186 to $236 a month for me and my daughter. And I was like, no ma'am, I don't need them. I want to get rid of this card. What do I do? Now, to her defense, she may have been new or they didn't train her, but she didn't know. She didn't know how we closed that account, so she had to put a supervisor on it. The lady came on and told me they're going to reload the card at the end of the month, and if you don't use it, they'll see that and they'll eventually cancel it. And that's all I wanted to know, was how to cancel it. But I realized that it was such a vicious circle, and it's so hard to get out. The hardest step that I took in all that was going from where I had help to where I was out on my own and doing everything. I've been there about 3 years now. But that was a pretty scary step, and it's such a vicious circle in the poverty or below the poverty level, because how do you say no to $236 that somebody's just going to give you for groceries? Most humans won't do that. I knew somebody else needed it that did need help, so I wanted to get rid of it. So as far as poverty goes, I do know how to deal with that. We have a massive army of social workers in this state, and what do? They help people get help. They're excellent at helping people get help, but there's not one of them helping people get off of that help. We're the second poorest state in the union. We've been one of the poorest states in our entire history. So it's about time we change that. And the only way we're going to change that is to, move people along through that. There's a saying, if you give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man a fish, feed him for a lifetime. Well, one party just wants a bigger and bigger bowl of fish. The other side is taking the directions and they throw them out there. There's how you fish, get after it. There's no one coming up and saying, come on, here's how you do this, let me walk you through this program. I was able to get through it because I was taught how to work as a kid, and I hated everything that I had to do when I was in that situation, and I wanted out of it. But if we retrain these social workers, this massive army of social workers we have in this state, and retool them a little bit to where we don't just help people get help, we help people get off of help. And then at the same time, we also need to have a line to where if you refuse to work, you get cut off. But other than that, we're going to help you. We're going to walk you all the way from below poverty all the way to being self-sufficient and in the middle class. That's where I'm at now, just barely, but everything's getting easier for me. I just got married 3 weeks ago, so actually my financial situation. I started out as a homeless single dad 7 years ago. And I was going to say this to start with. I accepted an offer on a house, so now I need a mortgage lender. We're going to get financing. We got married. I got married, and I'm running for Congress. So there is no reason to stay below the poverty level in this state. There's nothing easy about getting out of it, but the American dream is alive and well, and I've lived it. I studied everything that I wanted to know more about to get to this point. I think also, let me back up just a little bit. I told you that I didn't dream about being in politics. there were things when I was working for the resort, skiing, fishing, playing golf, there was a lot of stuff trying to move me away from that. I was aware of it. There were opportunities outside the resort, Angel Fire Resort I'm talking about, that were pulling me away from there, and I ignored all of it. And God wanted me to do something different, so he picked me up and slapped me all the way homeless so I'd pay attention. That's how I got here. When you don't pay attention to what God wants you to do, that's what happens. And I followed this path, and it's been pretty easy, really. I hate to say easy because the steps have been very clear. Every time I take another step, I have to work faster, or run faster, work harder. But it has been fairly easy to get here. What I found, and it's the same with the PTA or the school board, or I was a coach for a lot of years, it's the same 5 parents that show up to do everything. And a fella asked me the other day, how come I knew so many people that are involved in politics? Well, it's the same people that show up all the time. And they're the ones that are doing anything. Everybody has a gripe, but nobody gets out and does anything. So I've discovered through this whole process that I've gone through to get here that, everybody has a gripe, but nobody wants to stand up and put their money where their mouth is or actually go out and do anything. And I experienced that being a coach, but it's even more so now. I'm running for Congress for the United States House, and the whole northern part of New Mexico is my district, and every single person I talk to would like to see Ben really gone, but everybody says, man, that's a tough one. Good luck with that, and they pull it out the door. Nobody will stand up and say, hey, what can I do to help you? Our state is one of the poorest states in the union. We have to make some changes.
Enough with the celebrity politicians in Washington. Elect McFall for Congress, U.S. House of Representatives. McFall for Congress. People over politics. This message is brought to you by Concerned Citizens for New Mexico's Future. This message is brought to you by Concerned Citizens for New Mexico's Future.